Hi guys. So today we are working on a few things. This coding session, vibe coding session, is focused on. So I have a few things that I want to do, but priority is to solve some of the logic in the app. Now, I just realized while trying to work on the logic that there was a few problems. So I had put some times in on the schedule page, and those times were not showing. They were only showing for Saturday, Sunday. Yeah, they were only showing for a couple of days. Um, 5 days. Well, they were only showing for 2 days before. Now they're showing for 5 days because I fixed the error. So it wasn't an error. It's just the way the computer was interpreting this setting. So if we go back, make sure we'll just copy that link again anyway, just in case. This is good to help with performance testing anyway. If you go back to edit, okay, so it's not going to show what I already saved in there, but there's a field that says, we can go back just to show the field anyway. Maximum time in advance, and this field is supposed to be how far in advance, how much notice you need to give before you book. So, for example, today's the 27th. I won't be able to book. If I say I need 3 days notice, I won't be able to book till the 30th. But the system is interpreting this setting to be, I would need to be able to book over 5 days or 3 days. So if you put 3 in there, it only shows 3 days of appointment. If you put 5 in there, it shows 5 days appointments. So it's not a matter of something wrong with the times that are being recorded and something wrong with the times that are being recorded and then pulled into the app root, and then rendered on the HTML. That's not the problem. We went through that. I did some sessions before to kind of identify, ask CoPilot to list where the potential issues could be. And then using that framework, we then kind of went through a process of elimination. And then I asked it to give me tests to help identify which area it was. So if we thought it was kind of the database, the first step was to say, okay, what's in the database? And I made a note of what I had recorded in terms of availabilities, and then cross-checked what was in the database. And the database had different days with what I had recorded. So then we identified that that was the way the days are recorded. We were starting from Sunday as day one, and on our code, but then in the database, it's starting from Sunday as Monday. The day one is Monday. So that was what was causing the glitch. So we fixed that. And then the times were then correct once the days were correct. So it clearly wasn't the database anymore, right? And so we kind of went through this process and then identified why the slots were not showing up as. So the issue was some of the slots were not showing. And then the ones that were showing, they're showing the wrong times. So we fixed that. And then I was trying to work out why some of the slots were not showing. That was the last problem. Till I realized that the slots were showing for 3 days. And I was like, why is it showing for 3 days? And then I noticed that I had put maximum time in advance as 3 days. And I thought maybe that's the issue. So I changed it to 5 days. And now we can see 5 days, but we still see that it's not, but we can still 5 days, but that's not what this particular setting is intended for. So we need to work on the setting. So let's just double check what happens. So this is repeat weekly. So this should have the same. Okay. So this is fine, but this setting. So it's saying no slots available on this day, even though it's supposed to repeat weekly. And that's because so we need to work on some logic today, which is not was on my list, but I wasn't expecting to do it so early. We haven't really finished finalizing the email workflows yet, but this is one of the core features of the tool, so we need to fix that. So let's go to, this is kind of an old attempt to fix the issue, which CoPilot was suggesting something around time zones. I'm just going to take my okay, good. Let's start. And also on the general availability form, there's a setting called repeat weekly, and it's supposed to repeat weekly, and it hasn't. So So we're just going to tell it to confirm that that is indeed the case. So we're going to need to go and check the instead of going with there, we'll just check what's currently. So I'm going to attach that file. I always have a live version on Notepad, and make sure it's Notepad. I always use Notepad plus plus because Notepad plus plus is usually more. It keeps all the indentation and it's designed for code, so it doesn't mess up the formatting, which can create more errors and kind of delay things, which happened to me a lot initially. So that's helped a little bit. But as you do this as well, you need to also be aiming to improve your own understanding. That's one point as well, is that like with something like this, when you first start, it's very easy to just be like, oh, I just need to, be provided. So with this, it's very easy and tempting. And I myself initially just be like, spits out the code, you apply it, you check it. You don't actually see what it's telling you. You don't try to understand what it's telling you. You don't really try to get too involved in the reasoning and what the code is doing and where things are saved. And I guess the whole point of using ChatGPT is to reduce how much knowledge that one has to have in order to actually be able to build something. But we also want to be smart in trying to improve our understanding as we're doing this, because this is kind of the way that I'm looking at this. This is actually an applied learning course. So we're not learning from just copying, watching someone rather, or taking or studying. You're actually learning by doing it. The difference is that you don't have anyone to copy and tell you when you're kind of stuck, but relying on ChatGPT to do that. But if you're just blind copying, you're not really paying any attention, you're not trying to study anything as you're doing it, what will happen is that not only will you not actually learn more about how the mechanics of your product or app works, you also end up not getting faster, because sometimes with CGPT, it goes around in circles. And if you're not paying attention, it will ask you to do something that's wrong or irrelevant. And you won't know, and you'll just be doing it. And that could then eat up an hour and a half of your time, because this stuff can literally eat up an hour and a half of your time. Meanwhile, you were not supposed to be doing that in the first place, or what it's telling you to do is going to break your code, but you won't know. So that's the value in actually trying to learn more about what you're doing as you're doing it. So anyways, I've uploaded the current code into Flash app live. I'm going to attach it and it's going to read it, hopefully. It's going to say attached code. It doesn't need to be there because it normally doesn't know that. But okay, so I've asked it to confirm if I'm right about how it's interpreting how the logic is being applied. And now it's showing me. I can't really see where it tells you that, but that's why it explains it. Yeah, so cursor equals now, and then cursor date equals horizon date. and horizon. Yeah. Right. So let's see if this code is actually going to. Hmm. So let's get available slots. I do like to normally just check the code it gave me and to check that it's not too different from what's already there. Because sometimes it provides you using new code and then it ends up being removing some of the old code, which then takes you back instead of forward. So for some reason, I have two Flask apps on the system, which I do need to fix. But for now, I'm just going to. For now, so I just reloaded. Yeah, and then so I just reloaded, which should be fine. And then we're going to try it again. And sometimes when you reload, you then reload the app. You reload the app in the back end, and then you refresh on the front end, and it's broken. So again, you have to check like what changes do you make that affected what you had before. It's very common. So I'm just putting in times that I had before. I'm using these as times, my test times, because if I use the same times, I can always spot if something's wrong. I have them written here on a post-it note, actually. So I'm going to keep this as 3 days. Well, maybe 5, actually. And then we just put Samantha Pollack, XYZ. So the scheduler, I'm going to put it in this link to see if it works. So today's the 27th. We shouldn't be able to book anything today. Third day, 31st. 5th. Oh. So now we have an error. So today should be no slots. 3, 4, 5. The first has some slots. That's good. So that's a Saturday. It's 12 to 2. Good. 12 to 2:30. So that's good. Let's check. Monday. So there should be slots on. Okay, so let's get that as an error. Something's wrong here. Let's go to the error log. So 10:45 today, which is really interesting because normally this is always an hour behind. I don't know why the times have changed though. Just refresh this. Normally the time is always 1 hour behind the UK time zone, but all of a sudden it's changed now. I'm not quite sure what's causing that. But so there's two issues here. There's an error when you click on some error message that comes up when you click on some dates. And then also after 5 days, there seems to also still be no bookings. If I'm not mistaken, we need to just double check that. Two, three, 4, 5. Okay, so it's working, but it's not stable. Okay. So let's just copy all the errors. There should be an error log. Sometimes there's errors happening earlier than when I've come to work on the app. I never know if that's because there are systems running in the background that are failing for whatever reason. So, for example, from 6, I wasn't using it at this time. So, but nonetheless, let's put that all in and see what it comes back with. And actually, better to put it off here because and so when we give it to ChatGPT, I should have saved the error here. But nonetheless, we'll just attach the error log. It should cover the same thing. So we need to go into Bash console, which we've discussed before what that is. Oh no. I haven't copied anything, which is good. We have to go into Python. Okay, so this one seems to be crashing this console, so let's come out with it. Let's just close. I'm gonna close these two. So I want to go to Python. And then we want to copy. Okay, well, say it's no name. Sometimes it does. This is another thing with another issue that I run into a lot with this Bash console is that because I don't know how to, I don't really understand the command language. So the language of giving it commands, there's a lot of errors that it spits out. Sometimes errors that have to do with the app, but sometimes errors of how to, so errors about the command that we've put in, because ChatGPT sometimes gives you unclear instructions. So you just print whatever it prints, you just put it back in here. It will tell you what the issue is. So, for example, we're in the Python shell, but we haven't imported the app. But it knows that, but yeah, it will still give you that information anyway. So this is where sometimes it's not as smart as you think it is. And I have to remember to put a note here to prevent me from making the same mistake again. So what code did it put on there? From Flask app, import app. Just saves time. So that you don't make these mistakes again. Because what happens is that GPT will give you that wrong Python shell all the time. We'll give you the empty Python shell all the time, even though it knows that you are working within an app and it knows what the app's name is. But because it's giving this wrong information, you'll get something back as an error, and then you have to tell it to adjust it, which is a waste of time, especially if you already know what the app information is. So it's just about storing some of these codes to make it easier. So I'm going to just send it back everything, including the errors, because these error routes, they've been coming up a lot. I don't know what they're about, but they keep coming up. If it's something that you need to be concerned about, it will tell you. Let's see what this link is. This is the user slug, by the way. Just confirm it's the same thing. It's going off memory, ChatGPT. So just want to make sure it's not remembered it incorrectly. So that didn't go anywhere. Okay, so neither of these are working. Oh, so that is working. Okay. That's working. So essentially we're just testing out. This is not working. So yeah, let's just have a look. So this middleware was added for something, another reason previously, but I don't know why. I don't remember why. So need to get it out. Just write middleware. Just want to complete the word just in case there's another one. We'll see. We'll take this off. And see, it might create some other issues later. So just be alert. I don't want to take anything else off in case it makes it crash. Do need it in some environments, but I don't really know. So I've done that. So now we just need to reload and see what we get. So let's make sure everything is working again. So we're in November. Okay, so everything seems to be working. I think it's probably better if the dates that can't be booked are grayed out, but this is a kind of formatting issue. Um, we can ask ChatGPT. So I think it's working. The logic is working now. Let's not get too distracted because I do love to make things easy for users. That's one of the things because I'm one of these users that does not always understand when things are obvious. So I'm like, need to make them really clear. Okay, so that logic is working. I'm wondering if this is a good time to take a break because often what happens is then we get dragged into something. I get dragged into another very long session trying to do something else. But I think it's good to know when you have a win. Logic is working now, so that's good. I think the next step should be focused around emails. I think things like graying out and some of these polishing, I think some of the polishing can be done after. I think focusing on core functionality is important. I always get really distracted by polishing. For example, having this not be, having this not already be blue and then turning another color. So these type of things, better to focus on them once the app is actually working the way that we want it to work and it's actually being functional, than focusing on polishing and user interface changes, which can be done quite quickly and I think can be done as a secondary priority. So I sometimes fall into this trap myself because you see the changes and they look nice and then it makes me feel good, but not as important and can end up wasting quite a bit of your time. When in actual fact, people would probably use it if it did a good job and solved the problem without having it to look pretty. So it's one of these nice things to have, but not urgent. So we will do it, but just not now. So we'll take a short break, take our win, and then yes, pick up again to move on to emails. I know I've talked about emails before, but the issue previously was that emails were not being sent out when people signed up. Now they're getting emails. But now what we want is to have emails being sent when people book and when they cancel. And we need to just get those two stories working first. And then we can move on to other things.